Michelle Cameron Coulter. How are you doing? So honored to have you with us.
So fabulous to be here. Finally, I've been looking forward to this, Matthew.
So good, so good. Guys, I'd like to welcome to our podcast today, Coach Launch, Michelle Cameron Coulter. She's an Olympic gold medalist, 6 times world champion. She's a best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and CEO of Inspiring Possibilities. She became the first Albertan to win an Olympic gold medal in the Summer Games and since been included in multiple halls of fame and awarded the prestigious Order of Canada and 2 Queen's Jubilee medals. So amazing. Beyond the accolades, Michelle is a mum of 4, a wife over 30 years, and someone who knows firsthand what it means to rise and fall and rebuild again and again. I am so excited to be jumping into learning about more of your story today, Michelle. This is going to be an exciting journey. Are you ready to get going?
Let's dive in, shall we say?
Dive in. Yes. So, Michelle, you've got a lot. I've read a lot of your stuff. I've seen a lot of your posts, and I've read a lot of the things that are going on around you. And I'm super impressed. Like, you've got a lot of stuff that you're going and doing on a day-to-day basis. Okay, but it started at a place, and I don't want to go too far back in your journey, but I want to dive into your Olympics because I think this plays a big role in where we're going to go with this journey, talking about mindset, etc., how important the sport process is. But give me a little bit of an insight into where you came from and this journey into your gold medal outcome.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks for having me, Matthew. Honestly, I think that I love sharing this message that is so important and so powerful because really don't know what we're capable of until we jump into a situation. And my story was I was a shy, quiet, sick kid with a tremendous fear of the water. I grew up in a blended family of 10 kids, and it was a life
Wow.
skill. We had to learn how to swim. I failed my first level of swimming 4 times. I was so afraid of the water.
Wow.
And on the last attempt, I actually hit my chin on the side of the pool and sunk to the bottom. And it literally knocked the fear out of me. And I floated to the surface and went, okay, this isn't so bad. But I go, like, what if I had not got past that fear? I would have never gone on the journey that I did. Never did I think this little kid would end up being an Olympic champion in the pool, no less. And there's so many parts of that that are so important is that we're never too late to start something. Everyone said I was too old. I was 13. Can you imagine 13 was too old? Most of
Wow.
the athletes have been swimming 5 and 6 years already. So, like, when you find something that you literally dive into or fall into, the thing that kept me going was just that bit of improving every day. So I never thought that it would take me to the Olympics. That wasn't even in my radar. So that's kind of how I started late and just kind of literally fell in, moved past my fear, and then yeah.
So
And
you
here's a
just to be clear, you were super afraid of water, right?
Mhm.
And can you explain what was that feel like? What were you feeling when you were afraid of water?
I have a formula called sink, swim, and float. And when we do something new that we're afraid of, often we're not breathing or tight. There's with everything that's new, there's this sinking feeling. And when I finally, like, it was non optional, there was somebody that saw something in me more than I did in myself. And also, it was my mom's protectiveness going, you've got to learn how to swim, or you're not allowed to go in the lake or the ocean or in the boat or anything like that until you learn. And it wasn't until I literally was so afraid when I turned around and I hit my chin, it knocked it out of me going like, this isn't so bad. Like, how many times are we so afraid of something? First of all, we're not breathing. We're frozen in fear. But when we let go, I don't know why they call it the dead man's float, because when you let go, you actually float to the surface. It's like a life skill. But when we let go, it's never as bad as we think. But that sinking feeling is, I just want to share that's normal with anything that's new because there's this uncertainty. That's where that whole imposter syndrome, that's where that whole like kind of fears like, am I good enough? Can I do this? When we let go, it's never as bad.
So the readers understand, because I need to paint a picture here of this analogy that we've got, right? A kid that's afraid of getting into water is
Mhm.
like for some people, like for me, when I started swimming and surfing, it was no big deal. I would just jump in the water, like just do it. And it was like, there was thing. But there were kids that were afraid, and there were kids that were scared to a point where they wouldn't want to get into the water at all. And so there was a whole different perspective. From what I'm hearing from you is your family wouldn't allow that fear too much because you just had to do the thing. Maybe there's
Yeah.
a bit of that thing that's helped you to drive and say, well, I just had to do this thing. But I want to really understand, like, were you really afraid of the water?
Yes. Well, actually, I almost drowned when I was younger. And my
Wow.
mom also witnessed a cousin drown. So there's this underlying kind of
Wow.
safety part of it.
Wow.
So the fears can come from a number of different places. Did you know we're actually only born with two fears? The rest are learned. So that's a great question that you asked. Like, where did that come from? And the two fears that we're born with are loud noises and falling. Like if you watch a baby loud noise, they'll jump, or falling, they have that feeling. The rest is all learned. So there's been an experience that's contributed to that fear, something that's happened in the past that's typically something that triggers a fear in us.
And is this what you were
So,
experiencing at that from that? You were
mhm,
memorizing things, or you had these analogies, stories going on in your head about something that may have happened, and you kind of
mhm,
internalized that, and it's kind of
mhm,
been a barrier for you. So now you've
mhm.
got to this point, you've bumped your head, banged your head. Was that scary? Like, what happened there?
No, it just like all of a sudden it was relaxing. I remember looking up from the bottom of the pool going, this is not so bad. Floating to the surface, right? And then I went as far as I could in swimming lessons, started to, go as far as I could. And then, fell into the sport that I didn't even know what it was, synchronized swimming. Back then, people didn't know what synchronized
Wow.
swimming was. And because I started so late, like literally I tried out with my sister, and you just needed to be able to swim a length at that point in time. And we made the club and had to be back at 5 the next morning. So it literally was like jumping into the deep end of that sport. And I never turned back. Like it was every single day training from there. And then I worked up to training 6 to 8 hours a day. So it was literally full bore ahead from when I got
I used
in.
to have, my dad used to say to me, I'm going to knock some sense into you. Good old dad. I love my dad. He was a good old chap. But he used to say, I'm going to knock some sense into you. Is that something that might have happened when you were knocked your head on the pool? You kind
Maybe,
of got a
maybe.
wake up call, like,
Yeah, maybe. It wakes us up to what, like, wow, that's a silly thing you're hanging on to, right?
right.
So I asked this question: what things are we hanging on to because of a fear we may consciously know, but it's also there's fears that are unconscious that we don't even realize we have them, that they're holding us back.
Okay.
Be able to understand that and go, what would happen if I let go of that? Where could that lead to? And I often share, like, we don't have to get in the deep end, but we've at least got to more than put our big toe in to find out, because everything new is
Wow.
kind of scary the first time when we get out of our comfort zone.
And so that's amazing. So you've had this transformation as a kid, and you've kind of realized in a moment of letting go has been able to, has transformed you, has changed everything. Right? Because now you've gone into this next layer of your life where you're now fallen into the sport of synchronized swimming, and you're starting to pursue this as a sport.
I love that you said, like, got past this letting go. We let go over and over again. It's not like we let go once and that's gone, because life is about letting go of old things in order to move forward. So, like, even as I progressed in the sport and started to excel, like, I had coaches say, no, we didn't realize you had that much talent. And neither did I. Like, I'm not going to go into a lot of the history, but examples, like, I made the senior B team the second year I was swimming, not because I was good enough, it's because they needed another swimmer. I was still really crappy, honestly. And so
Yeah.
this fear of letting my teammates down was huge. So that was a driving factor. So the pressures that we start to put on ourselves, when we add those pressures up too high, they can hold us back. So it's balancing those pressures that can
Right.
help us and bring out our best, or those pressures that then can hold us back. Right. So it's like figuring that out. Um,
So understanding the dials that you've got to turn as you're going through this whole process, because let's face it, training for an Olympics or training for any sport, it can be tough. But when you're going for that next level, like, talk to me about the mindset, thoughts, and process as you're going up and towards becoming an Olympic champion.
yeah, for sure. There was one very specific turning point for me, I remember. One was like when I found that I was excelling, then deciding the things I needed to let go of if I wanted to pursue that. Like my family used to travel. My mom, growing up in a family of 10 kids, my mom worked for the airlines. That's the only way we would have traveled. So we were like the first Amazing Race. You pick a destination, split up into teams,
Right.
get there. She was also like the first Airbnb. She'd have an envelope of money and then find a house that was for rent or for sale and rent the house for that period of time. So going on these family adventures were amazing. And I remember the one year my coach said, if you go, you're not going to be on the team. Part of me was like, I
Wow.
want to go with the family. I want to make the team. And I didn't work as hard as I could have because I went with the family. I will never regret that. That was amazing. But when I came back, my coach kept her word and I wasn't on the team. And by the end of that year, I was ahead of half the girls on the team. So I knew I had the capacity or the ability to do it. So I had to start make some decisions of like, what do I need to let go of in order to make
Yeah.
the space to focus on and do this? The other turning point, oh, I'll share 3 turning points. So that's 1. 2 is to celebrate those accomplishments along the way because they give us the kind of evidence or the confidence to keep going. That year that I was ahead of the girls and at the end of that year I won the most improved swimmer. I have this sits beside my medal because it's
Oh,
just I'm
so
telling you,
cute.
it was just like going, wow, if I can do this, maybe I can do this. So we start to build our confidence by stacking those little wins. So do not underestimate those little wins. The
So good.
third, yeah. So the third turning point that was really key was I remember before our first world championship. So I'd been swimming almost 10 years at that point. I paired up with my partner at that time, Carolyn, who was a silver medalist from the 84 Olympics. Her and I paired up together. Our first world championship that we went to together, we swam in the States against identical twins who had been swimming together as a pair for 16 years. It was my partner and I's first year together. So the odds were a little bit against us. I remember a practice about a month before we were going to the games. Now you have to understand we're training 6 to 8 hours a day, super intense training, holding our breath. I used to have a problem passing out because that's a whole other story when you're exerting energy and you don't have the oxygen. So
Yeah.
training your body to, do what it's meant to and not like, I need air, like focus on what you're doing. And
Yeah.
my coach stopped me in the middle of this really tough drill. And I came up from under the water and she said to me, how would you do it if you were already a world champion?
Wow.
And that shifted the way I thought, like totally shifted the way I thought. How would you stand? How would you breathe? How would you present yourself? And there was this thing in the back of my head. I didn't want to ever come off cocky thinking I thought I was better than somebody else. And there's a difference between cockiness and confidence. It's not about being better than somebody else, which sounds weird because you think, oh, in sports, you want to beat somebody else. I always swam to do better and improve, and the results would come. You
So
also
good.
had to step into that persona of how would you do it if you were already a world champion? How would you hold yourself? What would you be saying to yourself? All of those things was a huge shift. So how that translates into anyone who's listening right now, it's like, how would you do it if you already were doing that thing? Right.
So
And what
good.
are
I
the
love
things
it.
Yeah, and what are the things that you're doing on a daily basis? And not that you're not going to slide into that point of questioning yourself, but it's like, how do you get back into that place and surround yourself with the people that see that in you and lift you up into that?
So I've got 3 contexts here. The first is that sometimes you have to make hard decisions to grow. That
Hmm.
doesn't come easily to many people because within that message, there's sacrifice or
Hmm.
there's missing out on family time, but missing out on other goals that you might want to achieve. And that's not easy for anybody to do. What was number 2? Number 2 was
To celebrate those accomplishments as you go,
to celebrate
even
small
the
wins.
little ones.
Small wins. What a huge reframe to take on board because it's the small wins that help you motivate you to the next one, right? And then
And yeah,
finally,
and it fills the joy bucket too, because if we're not even celebrating those, we get to that end and it's not, we've missed it. We've missed all the joys along the way too.
So good. I love that. And then the last one was believing or knowing. How do I reframe this? It's about knowing who you are or showing up as the person you want to be. If you want to be successful, if you want to be an Olympic, if you want to be a world class at anything, how does that person show up? Or how would you show up if you were in that place? That is massive because that draws you into that world of acting as that person, and that changes everything, right? That changes your whole dynamic, the way you think, the way you move. Those are three very powerful things. Thanks for sharing those stories. I love that. Now, I think there's a whole context coming up here about perfectionism. You mentioned the eating disorders and stuff like that you've battled through. I think these are all very important because as a world champion, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, I think most of us have these struggles and things that we go through. But more importantly, as we are now in our businesses, we struggle with these things. I think perfectionism is a big barrier for a lot of people. Talk to me about some of your battles in that and your mindset shifts and how you've overcome some of that stuff.
Thank you for bringing that up because this is what I'm so passionate about. And when I said earlier, letting go is more than one place, that we continually go, like that being so hard on ourselves. And that's why I talk so much about celebrating those things along the way and not underestimating, because otherwise you lose the joy that's in it. I remember being so hard on myself, and a coach at one point said to me, "You're getting fat." Well, you're training 6 to 8 hours a day. Like, you're in a judge sport. I like can
Wow.
eat any food. It wasn't, yes, for sure that triggered it, but it triggered this deep sense of unworthiness that I had somewhere, that I think
Wow.
kind of sits somewhere in each of us someplace. And it just brought it up of like, for me, when I was little, my birth dad, and I know like he was doing the best he could at that point in time, but it's like, you're good for nothing. That's what I would hear as a kid, or no one wants to
Right.
hear what you have to say. So there's
Yeah.
these things that can trigger that. And then also feeling like we need to prove ourselves constantly, like we have to prove ourselves. So yeah, the last 5 years of my swimming career, which it's almost unfathomable to think that I could put my body through what I did and perform at that level, which was drained every bit of me and sucked so much of that joy out, because I was very isolated. Like, no one knew what I was going through. Because back then, we were the first ones to use sports psychologists and exercise physiologists. Like, why are you passing out? Well, it could be a
Right.
combination of things that are happening here, because you're pushing your body to extremes mentally and physically. So, dealing with that, if I showed a weakness and I wasn't worthy or didn't have what it took to go into those pressure situations, what I've learned since then, with all the years of studying, how do we get into peak performance without losing ourselves in that process, without it costing us the things that are the most important? Because I could have done that journey without going through that, had I been able to have open conversations of the pressures and the struggles that were happening, right? Letting go of that perfection, being so hard on ourselves, feeling that we're alone, feeling that we can't talk about it. It took me a long time to actually share that I was having those challenges after. And the catalyst was, I didn't want my kids to go through that. I had 3 daughters and a son, and I didn't want them to be that hard on themselves. And what I started to allude to is, through studies, I've learned that over 80% of high achievers, especially women, deal with imposter syndrome, which is a trigger for that. And that 91% of women don't like their bodies. More
Wow.
men to that reached out since I talk about this, going, yeah, it's just letting go has to be one of the biggest things we can do, is letting go of those pressures. And my whole philosophy now is letting go of that and have a lot more what I call FU, and having a lot more fun, a
Love
leader
it.
with what,
If you something fun.
having real conversations about this, because when that pressure builds up, if it has nowhere to go, we don't have any way to talk about it. We feel like there's shame or whatever around it. That pushes us down. It pushes our capacity down. It pushes our joy down. It pushes our possibilities down, actually.
So good. And that's so true. I can relate to a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. And we get caught up in those cycles in our heads, right? But talking to other people or talking about these things can be a tough barrier to break through, especially for a guy.
Totally.
Like, to let go and talk about the stuff that's you're feeling or experiencing. How do you
And
work through that?
so, what a great question, too. And I'll share the first time, it makes me a little emotional even now. The first time I shared that publicly, I was speaking at a huge women's conference. And it's always like, how do you get to the gold medal, the performance? And I've got to be real because I'm struggling with this. And when I shared, and I had gone through the healing process at that point already, but struggling with this duality of feeling like I'm talking about one thing, but I feel fraud kind of because I'm not sharing wholly. Um, what the cost can be, and it doesn't need to be. So the first time I shared that was at this women's conference, and I just kind of let go and I just went, we can be the hardest on ourselves. And I shared that openly about the challenges I went through. And there honestly wasn't a dry eye in the audience, and everyone, you could just see their shoulders go down and just going like, oh my God, like it's letting go of the shame or feeling like you have to have all your shizzle together, or what if someone finds out you're no less worthy? You're actually connecting even more on a place that somebody can understand that if you can do that and go through that and be real, there's a lot we get to let go of. And so that was a big turning point for me. The other catalyst for that was my oldest daughter. Like, I had gone through the healing process on my own. It literally, it was one day standing in the shower and I saw a stop sign, like, stop beating yourself up, because no matter what I say, my kids could see how I was being to myself. Right. And my daughter was studying in university, women in sport. And there was a study around the high degree of eating disorders of women in sport. And she phoned me and she said, Mom, is this true? And I said, actually, yes. And let's talk. And then I've been very open about having open conversations about it. One of the things that held me back about talking about it was the feeling like I wouldn't be able to help people. Like, I'm not equipped to help people to get through this. And what I learned was having the conversation was the first step. I don't need to fix it, but to let go of that pressure was the first really big step to open up the space to have safe conversation around it.
Right. And so conversation is important. Communication is important. We understand that as entrepreneurs, and as we grow in our lives, it becomes more important how we communicate to others. But you're talking about releasing or letting go and talking to the world about your deep struggles, right? And most people struggle with that. I speak to loads of people on podcasts, and I see it time and time again when I start asking people about their deepest challenges, they glaze over or they change the direction of the conversation. And it's a hard thing to do. How would you suggest for somebody to let go and be able to be vulnerable and open up and have those conversations? Because number one, you need somebody to listen. Number
Mhm,
two, you got to break through that barrier that you have, like that internal struggle to actually do
mhm.
that. And it's tough, especially to be
It is.
honest, like with the team members, even just with your staff or with people around you or your loved ones, right? Like, this is a big challenge. Like, how do you solve this challenge?
You know what? It's really about being courageous, because it is scary because we don't know. And the fact is, when we do open up, there's even a closer connection and bond of understanding. I think we all crave real relationships. That whole eating disorders, all that, it's like trying to live in this box and persona that we think we need to be. That is really what it is. And when we can let go and we're able to be real, that's like taking off the shackles. And as soon as we can do that, healing can start. I think people are so afraid to ask for help and try to
Right.
figure it out on their. So to be vulnerable enough to have the courage, it does take courage to do that. And it's also, I'm trying to figure out how to share this, because we don't also want to come from it coming from a victim place and a martyr place, but here's where I am and I want to move out of this. So there has to be a willingness to, so it's not just to share it for the sake of like being in that place, but it's like, I want to share this because then we can understand each other even more. And now I can start to take the steps to move forward out of this. I might not even know what that looks like to do it, but it takes courage to have these real conversations, no matter what it is. Like, I'm stuck in business. I don't know what I'm doing. And it takes courage because we have this persona to think, well, if I don't have my shizzle together, no one's going to want to work with me. The fact is, the more real we are, then it's like, oh my God, you're a real person. I can actually talk to you and feel like I'm not failing because I'm sharing
Yeah,
something about where I'm stuck or where I'm
for
having
sure.
challenge. And
I
so
love
we
that.
spend more time being stuck because we're afraid what people are going to think. If we open up and we're courageous to have those conversations, it brings down the walls, it brings down the pressure in order to let us take that load off and actually move forward and have the support system around it to do it.
How would you propose creating a support system? Because if I went and started talking around, say, my staff or my family, and I just started blurting stuff out about how I'm feeling, it might come across as, this guy's weird. He's lost his mind, and
Mm.
we need to get him into a loony bin. It obviously needs to be done in an environment that makes sense. How does one go about creating this? Like, if I'm going to let go and talk about my deeper inner feelings, tell me, let's go take a step back. When you did this, right? When you took
Mhm.
this leap and you released this, you were at this event and everyone's connected with you. How did you feel? What was the transformation like personally to go through this?
Oh, it's going to make me emotional right now because it was literally felt like 1,000 pounds off my shoulders. And when
Wow.
I saw the connection that it made, where so many people had never spoken about it and they did, and the conversations after were so rich and so real and so like where I thought it was going to make me feel like I wasn't worthy or that people would think differently of me, it actually did the opposite in a way more authentic way. The next time, and I wanted to share because the next step to that was we have something called Bell Let's Talk in Canada. I don't know if it's everywhere else, but this was, I don't know how many years ago now. It just hit me, and it's about mental wellness, and I talk about mental wellness when we hold this stuff in and this stress, increased anxiety, increased depression, increased disconnection. All these things happen when we're holding this stuff in, when we're able to talk about it. So I just kind of on a whim, like I had come from being with one of my best friends who was going through cancer and she didn't want to talk to anybody about it. And I was grateful she reached out to me, but there was something that just triggered and going, I need to talk about stuff because our body takes that on. Our body takes on stress in one way, shape, or form. Our bodies are amazing. It will tell us. And so I ended up going live on Facebook with this, and my thing just blew up, and I didn't know what I was going to say. I was just being raw and real and talk about putting it out to the whole world. It makes me emotional because the amount of people that reached out and just said, thank you. And they started to talk. And
Wow.
it's not about going into victim phase because that's what scared me is thinking I didn't know how to help people, but being free to have that conversation and then going to have help and support from someone that's an expert in that area. Just even talking about, okay, now what are we going to do on a healthy thing day to day from here to create that
So the,
environment? So
so
it's
that's,
breaking this of it too. The
yeah,
stigma, thinking that we have to have all our shizzle together. We have to look like, and I'm telling you, I go through phases of that too. And I think that's one of the things that has helped me back in some ways on other areas. We talked about this before we got on the podcast, is that even for myself, I found myself going in waves of expectations that I put on myself that are unrealistic. Like, you're a world champion here, so your standard of excellence needs to be here all the time. That's not realistic. It's like
yeah.
when I'm doing things, I'm starting all over again. So it takes courage to be vulnerable and real when I'm falling and messy and figuring out and trying to get my confidence. And confidence only comes from doing and sharing. I know I'm giving you a ton of stuff at once, but you've opened the floodgates. So,
Well, let's take a step back because I obviously can hear that you had a huge transformation by releasing and
mhm,
letting go and talking about the stuff that you've been struggling with, and you were being authentic and real, which now resonated with a lot of other people, which has now helped to transform their lives and give them
mhm,
new purpose and vision.
mhm,
Now, so in saying that, like there's this huge positive outcome. Like, not only do you help yourself to transform, but you help other people because they can feel like they can lift their own weight. They can release
mhm.
their own stuff. Well, they can be more authentic, whether with you or with other people, because now they've seen that process, right? How life changing is that? Like, it's totally transformational. So for you, you've been in this process and you've done this for yourself, and I can tell it's changed your life amazingly, and I can tell from following your stuff that you've changed lots of other people's lives. But let's take a step back, right, and go back to my previous questions. We will go into your process. Let's talk about a process, right? For somebody that wants to go through this, because you help people break through perfectionism and fear and step into their
Mhm.
full potential so they can live a
Mhm.
joyful, fun life sustainably. I love that context, right? This is what you do. You help people, individuals, go from perfection and fear to step into their full potential with joy and sustainability. How
Mhm.
amazing is that? And this is
Yeah.
probably one of the pieces of the puzzle, right? Is letting go and being your authentic self. I think that is
Mhm.
super amazing. So talk us through some processes or steps that people can use
Mhm.
today to start breaking through these barriers. That'll be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take you through the steps. And before I do, I want to share one story that is a big catalyst to what I do. And anyone who's listening who has kids, my children have been my greatest teachers, honestly. We've got 4 children, and every one of them has stretched me and taught me in different ways. And I will share a particular story of my oldest daughter when she was only 10. She's now a young adult and a teacher, which she was a born teacher. But when she was only 10 years old and I was having a rough day, it was still in the middle of all this stuff. And I was rushing and racing I was late getting somewhere. I was obviously stressed out. A vein was practically popping out of my neck, leaving late. And she opened the garage door and she goes, "Mommy, remember I love you. And remember the energy you put out's the environment you create."
Oh,
Oh my God, out of the mouth of babes. Like I wasn't ready to hear that, when you're in that elevated state. And how true was that? Like so incredibly true. The energy we put out is the environment we create. So
wow.
if you take that as a foundation for anything today, like take that. I will share a science experiment that she did too, and then I'm going to go into the process that the
Gotcha.
foundation to living our best and really diving into our potential. But I want to share this story because the same daughter at 10 years old, again, the profound, like kids are so wise because they don't yet have limits on them of what's possible and what's not possible. Wanted to do a science experiment on the effects of positive and negative thoughts on our energy. So I'm like, yay, that's great. How are you going to do that? So the first part was kinesthetic. So what we say actually changes our physiology. If we say, like, if I were to get you to put one hand on top of the other and try and push it down, but not let it go down, and you say,
Yeah.
"I'm strong and invincible," and you try and push it up, you're going to feel strong. If I was to say, "I'm weak and insignificant," you feel the difference in your physiology. You feel from what you say changes our body.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was one part of it. The other part, which was amazing, is she planted bean seeds. So there's positive, negative, control, same soil, same sunlight, same water. The control she left alone. The positive, she said positive things to and played positive music to. And the negative, she took in the bathroom and yelled at 3 times a day. And she would come out and say, "Mom, I hate doing this part." I wish I had the picture in front of me. But amazing what happened. The negative plant grew about zero point 0.5 centimeters a day, very sparse leaves. The control grew about a centimeter a day, and the positive grew about 2 centimeters a day. That's a
Wow.
plant. So, what we're saying to ourselves has actual physiological impact. So, when we're beating ourselves up or when we're saying good things to ourselves, and we have like 60,000 thoughts a day that go through our head. And the fact is, like, a high percent are negative. But here's the good news. Now that you know that, that awareness is the first step to start to shift that. So those are the two kind of prefaces that I want to put in place before I take you through
Good.
the fundamental steps.
Yeah.
And I shared in my TEDx. So if you at my TEDx is like letting go of perfection, like how to move from perfection to possibility. And even doing the TEDx in itself was a test because I went through the whole perfection shizzle stuff. I almost made myself sick doing the TEDx. And I go, "Oh my God, I need to do what I'm talking about." To let go of perfection because you actually have to memorize your speech word for word. And so that was a
Wow.
big stretch of kind of getting back out there again.
Yeah.
The foundation of it And that's why I brought up children, because when you see kids, their creativity, their joy, when you watch kids, if they're frustrated or stuck, what do we say? Go have a nap, have a snack, go outside and play and celebrate. These are the foundations. And now it might sound really simple and it's very easy to comprehend this, but to actually put it into play, especially as we get older, is really easy to not do. We know all this stuff, but to know it is one thing and to do it another. So as I go into each of those phases, it's like the nap. If we're not rested, no high performance athlete, no CEO, no parent, whatever, can sustain high performance if we're not rested. We are that cranky parent with the vein coming out of our neck. We're not good with our spouse. We're not good with our employees. We're not, like, if we're not rested. So you notice when you're rested, you get those clear ideas at 3 a.m. or in the shower because you've slowed down,
Yeah.
right? So resting, it's easy to say because we get in that go, go, go mode. The snack part is what we're fueling our body, like what we're putting in does dictate what we're putting out. So what we're putting into our mind, what we're fueling our body with, if we're watching the news and watching all the negative, that's that plant, right? That's that energy. We're fueling it with all this negative stuff, as opposed to what are we listening to? Who are we surrounding ourselves with? And what are we fueling our body with? We all know we're supposed to drink this much water. Well, who doesn't? Like, really, honestly, there might be a handful and we might go in waves, but that is foundational, right? So it's like actually implementing and doing these things. The play. If you're stuck, crank on the music, start dancing, look like an idiot. Who cares? Like, kids play. That's when our creativity comes. That's when it's like, oh my God, I get this idea because I'm not pushing so hard. I'm letting go again, right? And then the celebrating, like when a kid does something good, when a child's like, yeah, high five, you got this. What's that do? It builds their confidence. So when do we stop doing this as adults? And
Yeah,
then the
true.
other, or the appendage to that, which is really important, is to have, it doesn't have, none of these phases are sustainable or as effective in isolation. So finding a community where we can have real and honest conversations when we're going through challenges, not just flower them over and pretend it's not there, because that's when we start to stack anxiety. That's when we start to stack resistance. That's when we see imposter syndrome,
Yeah,
perfectionism,
sure.
procrastination,
Yeah.
all those things.
Yeah.
So that's the foundation of a high performance athlete, a CEO, a good parent, a healthy parent. So the foundation, it's getting to the basics that are the most important.
So good. That's a lot of information. So this is your framework, right? That you help people with, is to build their resilience or to come out of that perfectionism, imposter syndrome, the fear, because that holds a lot of people back. And we've got so much information these days being pushed down our throats about
Yeah.
how to live well, how to eat well, how to do all these things. What would you say is the unique magic source that you have that you provide or help people to get to break through these barriers?
Great question. So really, I gave you the foundational first phase of it, which is that taking care of self. And what does that actually look like as a foundation? Then secondly, it's really letting go of the things that are holding you back, the old beliefs, the old systems. I remember years ago when I finished swimming, I was trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do with my world. And my brother's like, you should go see this guy, Tony Robbins. I didn't even know who he was. We went on this island for 10 days and like, it was amazing. I didn't know who this guy was. We learned how to like walk on fire. And one of the things we had to do was climb this pamper pole and jump out to this trapeze. So a pamper pole is like a telephone pole. Like you go up to the top of the telephone pole and it's swaying in the wind. And then you got to jump out to this trapeze. And I was just like, oh my God, first of all, I don't like heights. I get up there. And it was interesting because as the trapeze is going back and forth, I stopped for a moment and realized that I've got to leap when it's furthest away, not when it's closest. Because if I leap when it's closest, it's going to be furthest away. So you got to leap when, like, have that faith to leap
Yeah,
through.
right.
99, I'm going to say 100% of the people that didn't get the trapeze, guess what? They were hanging onto the security rope. There's no way they could have got it. So what do you need to let go of in order to take that leap? And then the
Uh-huh.
third one is being able to sorry, I'll let you pause in there because then there's 4 steps to the actual process that I take you through. So it's identifying those things that we need to let go of, and we don't even know what they are until they arise. And sometimes we can't even see what we need to let go because someone else can see it before we can. We can't see we're hanging onto that rope. We can't see
Right.
what that thing is holding us back or that old belief. And then the next phase is actually claiming it, like claiming and leaning into claim what it is that you want. I actually had the license plate gold 88 on my car the year before the Olympics. So it's like claiming it. You could think, oh, that's just being all that in a bag of chips. But it's like, no, you need to claim it,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
It's definitely that knowingness of it. And then the
Gotcha.
last part is that community. Like doing this in isolation, there's no way we can sustain. So it's finding that community that really is going to lift you up through those moments.
Awesome. So that's really cool. So, step 2, your magic source is to help people let go, from what I'm hearing.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
we like that is so powerful if we put that into context and reframe that, because I believe 100% what you're saying. And I can so connect with that because we all hold on to stuff. That's what's holding us back from moving forward. And here's the thing, right? Personally, I don't think that many people know how to let go, or what it means to let go, or what that even means, or what does the process look to let go. You can just say, "Oh, I'll let go," but
No,
what does that even mean, right?
there is a whole process to it because here's the thing, when you've hung on to things for so long, it's actually in your cells. So there's a process to go through to actually get that out of your system and it will, and it's not a one-shot thing. It's over time we build that resiliency. And that's one of the things that I think that is really a big challenge post-COVID. It was before, but
Yeah,
even more so is resiliency to keep getting back up. That's part of it. And it keeps it like we take off those layers, but healing really comes from that. That's why somatic healing is so big right now. That's why breathing is so big, like not underestimating the power of breathing and moving that fear through our body, moving those old belief systems through our body. We can't just think them out. We're not going to just think them out. It
right.
actually is a process that we go through to continually get them out. I'll share one more story of a powerful example of that. When my TEDx came out, well, 2 things I'll share. I lost my mom to COVID during COVID. And that was really hard. Like my mom was amazing. She started her last company at 75. I was working with her in her last company. We went head to head a lot. We had our challenges, but I miss her now and I cherish the lessons that I wish I would appreciate it even more then. But
Yeah,
it really took me a long time to get myself back up again. And then I had a friend that asked, they said, you should apply to do a TEDx. I don't think anybody could talk about letting go of perfection like you could, like you were at the extreme of what perfection was. That was what your whole career was about perfection. How do we let go of
yeah.
that? For me to jump into doing that took me through the whole process that I talk about. Like I actually had to live it. The irony is that my TEDx came out probably 2.5 months after I did it, and I was visiting my birth dad at that time, which triggered all these unworthy things. And he's like, he doesn't really care about what I do or understand. And I get to let go of that too. But it took me into this spiral of I lost my voice for 10 days. Like it's like
Wow.
when we think we're healed, there's going to be things that trigger us. And it was so hard for me at that time for my TEDx to come out at that time because it was something to have been celebrated. And I look at it as such a gift because it was such a bright light for me to say, we're constantly going to be on this journey. And it brought me back to understanding it's not just one time. It's every time we do something new and we're stretching ourselves, it's going to continue to take that courage and go through these steps that I literally went through to get myself back, to get my voice back again and go like, I get to now come up even another level of understanding and having that courage to keep moving. So I know that was a lot to share, but I just share because it's not all of a sudden you get it and you're done, but you've leveled up and it's like we understand ourselves even more and then we can reach out even further with what we're capable of doing, inspiring possibilities. It is the courage to jump in over and over again.
So good. You're obviously very passionate about your topic, and that's really good kind of source that you're bringing to the table here. And I'm absorbing all of this information. It's a lot to take in. But I do get it. I do understand the whole context of it because letting go is tough. But when you have a framework or people or groups of people that are helping you do it, that'll make life a lot easier, right? So many people trying to do the stuff by themselves. And it builds, like you said, if you keep that stuff in over a long period of time, it builds inside of you. And then there's resentment, there's anger, there's regrets, there's frustration, there's thinking about rumination and your past and all that kind of stuff that kind of perpetuates and it does you no good.
Mhm.
And I think that to have a tool where you can let go of all these things, it can transform your life, right? It'll give you a whole new way of thinking, a whole new way of looking at the world, your life, the connection with the people around you, your family, of all these amazing benefits. I never thought about it. Just the simplest thing of letting go can change so many things in your life, right? Taking that excuse me, taking imperfectionism, fear, and turning it around by simple tools used to let it go. How good is that? I love that. Thank you so much for
Mm.
sharing all of that.
Mm. And it does take courage, right? It's scary at first. And as soon as you do, it's like, think about this for a moment. You know, when I talked about we've got to more than put our big toe in, we don't have to get in the deep end. But I mean, you're in Australia. I think everybody knows how to swim in Australia. You're in God's
It's
country. You're
right.
so, well, I love it there. But if you were to go run off the dock and do a big cannonball, it's messy and it's fun and it makes the biggest ripple. So whatever energy we're putting out, we're creating that environment. So the more courageous we are, the more fun we have, the more messy it is, the bigger ripple effect we have the capacity to create without restricting it.
Oh, wow. I love that. You've gone through a lot and you're transforming people's lives. You're a leader, you're an author, you've got people around you that you're inspiring. It's very life-changing and it's really impressive. And I'm very honored to be sharing this moment with you, Michelle. And it's been a very, very poignant lesson today on resilience and getting rid of imperfectionism. I think that's such a big message and it's an important message. Now, there's a lot of listeners that we have here on the podcast that most of the listeners are entrepreneurs. And some of the struggles that you've talked about today, I know that a lot of people resonate with. I do. Perfectionism and fear are a big debilitator in business and life in general. And being able to open up and communicate effectively with the people around you, your family, and your staff, all that kind of stuff, it is so important to do, but yet we don't intrinsically have those tools to do it. So we need to learn from people like you. We need to learn from experts and masters who have mastered their trade, and that shortcuts the process for us as entrepreneurs wanting to grow and learn. I would like for you, please, if you could, what inspiring message would you give to entrepreneurs out there who are struggling with things like doubt and insecurities and imperfectionism? Like, what message would you give to them to say, this is how you can move forward in your life?
Yeah. You know, to first of all, stop being so darn hard on yourself. It sounds so simple, but it's like just that awareness of and going, it's okay if it's not, it's never going to be perfect, first of all. And that we get to have a lot more fun and honestly, to not try and do it on your own. I'm so excited and proud that I've restarted up my inspired action and momentum pods. It's like, what do we want to say that we are? Like, I am, you know, having fun and fearless and courageous and we're not doing it alone. So being able to we form these teams. So it's like you're on this small team and you have this, we talked about this early on, Matthew, and that's what I love so much about sport is that you're on a team and everyone is seen and heard and it matters that they're there. And so like creating an environment where there's people that you can trust that are going to lift you up because you're all going to take turns where someone's not having a good day, but the goal is to not be down there. Let's not be real about the days that are down. Like, don't pretend that's not happening because it does, but let's just get up faster. And that's one of the goals of this, creating that environment that we get to be real on and move forward in a healthy way and celebrate each other. Like we don't do it. So where are the environments where we can be real and just say, hey, this is what our challenge is. How can we, face this together, not attack it? Because that's an energy. The words we use are so powerful too. Like, how can we look at this? Like, okay, this is fascinating. How can we approach this? And how can we make this more fun? So if we lighten that atmosphere, we're going to get a lot more done. being in that healthy environment where we can be real, where we refuel constantly, where we're celebrating each other's successes, and where the values are having FUN. Like the more fun that we're having, it's like we're figuring, guess what? We're all figuring it out together all the time.
So
Anyone
good.
who's a CEO or whatever, they had to figure it out. I say, like, we can thrash across the pool, or we can have more fun and have someone say, oh my gosh, did you know I see this in you? You might not see it in yourself, like that coach who saw it in me. Like, we get to see in each other. We're going to see it in each other better than we will ourselves. And it's not always easy to not only recognize it in ourselves, but also celebrate it in ourselves without it coming from a place of cockiness. It comes from a place of building that confidence. So that was a big bundle, but it's creating that environment. The energy we put out is the environment we create. So what environment are we surrounding ourselves with? What people are we surrounding ourselves with in order to really inspire our possibilities? And we
So you,
rise or
I
faster
want
together too.
to take a step back. And I want to highlight this because it's something I think that's important to mention. Is you talked about your pods. What did you call it?
Inspired action and momentum,
Inspired
because it can
action.
be action and busy, but it's not inspired and moving in a
So
direction.
you have this thing where you have these pods. So you're creating groups of people in groups where they can bounce off each other, entrepreneurs mostly, that can be coached by each other, learn from each other, and build a more impact together in these communities. Like, talk to me about what that's doing. How's that helping entrepreneurs, and what are they getting out of that?
Well, it's creating a safe environment where we are constantly working on the mindset part, because it's easy to slide off. It's like keeping that coal near the fire, keeping the fire going by staying in it. And what I've done with the pods is everyone chooses two goals that they want to move forward. One is always health and well-being. That's foundational, because how many entrepreneurs burn out? So it comes to those basic foundational, that is it. And then what is the goal that they want to get traction on in that 90 days? And people can have different goals, but it's amazing how they learn from each other. I create the container in order to stretch and continuously be courageous and stay accountable through it, so that we're keeping our words to each other, but it's creating that container that's safe. And I'm creating an ecosystem where you're not only on a team, but then you're part of this bigger ecosystem that is that place that you were talking about, where you can have real conversations and go like, okay, this is what I'm having a challenge with. I don't even use the word problem. It's a challenge, because a challenge we can take on. And then it's like, okay, how do we move forward? Oh my God, I was feeling the same way. This is what I did. And it's constantly, repetition is the mother of skill. So we can know all these things, but unless we're in a constant environment to hold us in that space, you don't decide you're going to go to the Olympics and then, it's going to happen. You've got to be in that environment that can take you there, right? It's like whatever we
Totally.
decide to do, create that environment that is going to elevate us and keep us healthy. That is foundational to what I'm doing, because it doesn't matter if you get there and there's no joy and you're burnt out and you've left your family and your health and your relationships behind. Yeah.
So good. So you're creating these environments for people to grow internally and
Mhm.
externally with their mindset and their wealth. That's impressive.
Mhm.
That's really good. I think in this day and age, we're so disconnected from each other. And that's one of the big problems that's affecting us in society, right? And to
Mhm.
bring people together, like, the power of that is huge. That allows people to connect with each other, grow together, and learn from each other. I think that's an amazing thing. So
And then
if somebody,
what
sorry,
oh, sorry. I was going to say, one of the things that grows because so many of these teams is that creating a certification program. If someone's gone through and the values lead come from their heart that they want to lead, and often a lot of athletes have those traits of that team that want to lead, but there's leaders that want to lead because I want to create that culture that you're still all part of, you have your own team, but you're part of this bigger ecosystem that is authentic and real and changing the world, because we can lift each other up and bring out the gifts and potential that we all have. So it's like creating this ecosystem that's lifting
so
each
good.
other.
I love the word
Mhm.
team. You're bringing team into it because team is important. If we're all working together in the same direction, it all happens
Mhm.
so much smoother, faster, where the camaraderie, the growth, the joy, the fun. And when you're in groups of
Mhm.
people doing, like, imagine when you were we were younger and we were playing sports, right? How much camaraderie there was. There was fun. There was, what do you call it? Like passion. And, you pushed yourself to beat the other team. Like you're doing it in these groups. Like that's such a powerful context in this. I really love this. So if people wanted to get hold of you and learn more about this, how would they go about doing that?
They can reach out to me on michellecameroncoulter.com, or you can reach me on LinkedIn. I have this interesting quiz that we put together. It's an inspired action quiz to find out what inspired action type you are. So it's just kind of fun and interesting, and ask some kind of cool questions that we might not think about. So I can send you that as well.
That'll be awesome. So we'll put the links in the show notes, guys, so you can catch hold of that. Grab Michelle's quiz, give it a whirl, and find out what is the outcome.
What type of inspired action taker you are.
What type of inspired action taker you are. How cool is that? Guys, jump into that. And it's been an honor to catch up with you, Michelle. It really has been a great chat. And I'm sure the listeners have had a great time too, listening to this. A lot of value bombs, so much. And honored to have you here. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Matthew. So nice to have some time with you way over in Aussie land. I want to come and visit you for real.
No worries. Awesome.